Denny, good morning, brother. Well, good afternoon where you are in sunny Thailand. How are you, mate?
Yeah, great, brother. Great to be back on your show and great to see you again.
Hey, great to host you again, and
Thank you.
even greater to see that you're still smashing the good things in life, and this time it's a book.
This time it's a book, but it's a 25-year coming book, so it's a big occasion to get to the end of this one. It's been something that's been on my noggin for a wee while.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing, isn't it? I don't want to get too sidetracked here for the people that have tuned in to see about publishing, but um, if you've got the idea to write a book, you've got to follow it through. Otherwise, it's just going to nag you your whole life, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I've never written a novel. This was a new experience to write a story amongst real events, but make it, you know, not believable in a true sense. But it was a challenge, and to be honest, it's been something I've been thinking about for years and years and years. 8 years ago, I put a lot of time into it, and then COVID happened. I think after the last time we spoke, 7 months ago. For the last 6 months, I've just been doing this full time. So it was thanks to COVID, I had the time to finish this long-term project.
Yeah. What's that? So, what's your book about?
At the moment, it's called Little Kingdoms. It's I don't even know what genre yet to put it into. That's why this would be a great conversation. It's based in 2072, and we're looking back after like heaven's been on earth, peace has been on the world for 40 years, and we're looking back to what went on and the journey through a couple of main characters through the 90s, throughout into that time. So it's the emperor who's telling the story. The second coming of the second coming is imminent. So the second coming's already happened. The next second coming is imminent. So it's about how they prepare the kingdoms for this new event. And then it goes back into 1986, builds up the characters. But the main theme throughout is the two main characters are on the run. One's an ex-commando who's traveling the world. He meets a Canadian.
An ex-Marine for our friends at home.
Ex-Marine, Royal Marine Commando, who's traveling the world. He's left the Marines dedicated to go find God and find his soul. And along the way, he meets a Californian model and they go surfing together. And then as that evolves, they end up on the run from an elite pedophile gang. And then the story unfolds about the evils of that period of time and how evil was conquered, I suppose, is the theme of the book. But it goes through religious texts, Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism. And the characters of those prophets, their characters are actually giving the heavens advice on how they're going to come down and have the final attack on the world to bring peace, to bring heaven to the earth. So it's a bit horror as well. There's a few torture scenes in there, a few sex scenes in there, a lot of religious text. So I don't know how we make this a genre, but that's the main theme of this book. It's about how the world became at peace and the evils. The reason the story's been told by the emperor is so the evil can't creep back into the minds of the people.
So first thing there, as Stephen King would say, is write what you know, isn't it? Or loosely base your fiction on stuff that you know about, and then you get one thing that you're going to do there is you're going to write accurate stuff. You're not trying to guess like what does a gun, how does a gun work? What's the name of the gun? How many bullets does it? Because once you try and do that and you don't know about it, you can do it. And my first.
But even guys like us can do it. And then we think to ourselves, when you read back on it, you write down this happened, unloading drill, that happened, unloading drill. And then you think about it and you think, well, that practically probably couldn't happen. That was just my story coming down. So it takes a long time, even for guys like us, to make sure that we get that accurate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great process. But it's really challenging. I don't know about you, Chris, but writing a novel where it's, it's challenging in the sense that you do have to go into those deepest fears. It's the reason it took so long to write is because once I wrote the God stuff and the Jesus stuff and the Muhammad stuff and the Buddha stuff, I went into a kind of spiral and depression of guilt that even I thought I should or I could do that. It took ages to really get my head around. You can play God for 1 minute and then you can play the devil for the next minute. And then you have to deal with that in your own head while everyone's going, hey man, I was at work today. Or you go down the gym, open the gym and you do that. So I just found the balance of writing this book or topics like this, they needed a lot of deep research, especially child elite paedophile gangs and how they operate and the satanic ritual abuse that goes along with that. So I had to learn a lot about the victims, and that took years. And it didn't. That research is not nice, mate. You know, there's nothing nice about that sort of stuff when you start to realize that's actually going on in the world. It's breaking out. People are hearing about it now, but when you realize that there's actually victims out there telling you stories, and there's 6 hours of one victim or 10 hours of another, and you have to sit through that, and that was hard. I didn't make those stories. You know, the horrible part about that's not in the book, but how they overcame that and how they got around that is so. Yeah, it was challenging for sure. And I think, like Stephen King too, I was very inspired by Stephen King a lot. I read a lot of his books, and they frightened the shit out of me. So when you're writing stuff which is quite evil, it frightened the shit out of me, you know. And I had to get Lisa in on this with me about 4 months ago, because I wanted to make one book. I've got 10 or 15 books of this stuff, Chris. There's loads of it, but I didn't know how to start it, how to have a middle, how to have an end, how to do that. And Lisa's more academic than me, so for the last 3 months she's been helping and bring a story and a plot line together, and it really came together. Like all the stories just simply just gel, almost like a divine experience. You know what I mean? After all these,
your partner,
my wife, yeah,
wife. I'm sorry, I was trying to avoid that word because I get that a lot. How's your wife? I'm like, I haven't got one.
but you go along with it because she's a common law wife and you have a kid together, so it's a reference point to your partner, right?
Means nothing, makes no difference to me, but.
We can talk about Lisa and I's marriage. Lisa and I got married in Thailand on a mountain, just the two of us, before we did the process of registering married. So I have a very firm belief that marriage should be for love, and anything other than that, it shouldn't cost you money. It shouldn't cost you $50,000 or pounds for a wedding ceremony, especially if you haven't got it. You know.
Yes, exactly. So. I just wanted to make a couple of points there for our viewers at home. If you're going to write fiction, I'd strongly suggest getting a hold of Stephen King's audiobook on writing. I say the audiobook, it depends what your thing is, but you can have that playing every spare minute of your day, and it's very engaging, because if you've made that commitment to write a book, you will like this book, because it's telling you the stuff you're starting to figure out about structuring your novel and your descriptive narrative and your characters and your plot and this kind of thing. So it was very affirming, I think is the word, when I listened to that book in the car for about a year, just over and over and over, while I wrote my first novel, which is The Drift.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and that's another point, isn't it? When you hear, oh, somebody's writing a book and you haven't written one because, you know, it's not your thing yet or whatever, you gloss over, because you don't know that emotional attachment and effect that writing a book has on the author. You just think, oh, my mate Dave's writing a book. You don't think that, no, Dave sat there, he's become a part of this book. The characters are inside him now. He's thinking ahead to, will I get published? Is my work good enough? Have I learnt the punctuation, the grammar, the narrative, the scene setting? How long should my book be? Oh, what happens if it comes out and people think I'm an idiot? You know, it's
these are all real thoughts, right? These are real anxieties that go through your process of writing all the time. You're absolutely right. I think writing a story is easy, because it's easy. You just put it down. It's your idea. You get excited, and as long as you're not worried about your grammar, then you know, and you can write it for as long as you want. Come up with a great plot line, great story, and then you go to your first edit, the first time you're reading it for real, and you realize how many "the" are there, how many "has" are there, how many "were's" are there, weren't's there, and there's so many different words. Once you see them, then you have to really work at the art of writing. And I didn't have an English level. I didn't have anything like that. I've written a couple of books. I've got experience of adult education to help me get through this. But I think the process of editing was hard. And I know now, having spoken to a lot of authors who have had some success and have not, that this is the scariest and hardest part, getting to the end of that process when you're ready to give it to someone and say, do you think this is a business worthwhile, a project worthwhile of your business? And that's the difference between having a nice story to tell and having a published book like you have, mate. And that's why when I asked you the other day, I sent you an email or I sent you a message and said, look, Chris, I'm at the stage now where I'm going to be writing to agents and looking for a publisher. Have you any advice you can give me? Potholes I can miss so I don't just go around blindly, but my friends have been there before. And thanks for allowing me to have this time with you one-on-one to talk about which is the most important part of my life right now, man, to be honest.
Yes, and I'll just give a shout out. Another shout out here is anyone who wants to write a book, whether it's fiction or memoir, read my free, I make nothing off this at all. Sometimes they put it for 99p on Amazon, I think, but it should be for free on Amazon as a Kindle book. And for anyone who doesn't know, anybody can read a Kindle book. You just download a Kindle app to your phone or your device, and then you put the Mobi file on there, which is your Kindle book. My book is called How to Write a Memoir from Procrastination to Print. And the procrastination word that's the key word in that phrase. And the reason I chose that is, how long do we procrastinate about writing a book? We can do it for years. And it's actually really simple to start writing your book. You get a glass, you fill it with wine, or you open a beer, if that's your thing. Obviously, I don't do that so much these days. And you sit down and you start making a list. And you have a sip of your drink and you write, this guy said that to me. And then you go, oh, and then I hopped on the bus. Okay, maybe not such banal memories, but the time that this guy said this to me about this. Then the next thing, and you're capturing all those seminal moments that are all buzzing around your head. And you don't have to write them in any order. You can say, oh, the time when I got the movie contract. Yeah. Oh, the time when they told me I hadn't got the movie contract. Right. And what you're doing is you're putting your story, you're bomb bursting it onto paper. And then you go through it and you copy and paste and put it into then a timeline. What am I saying? What I'm saying is, all you're doing is sat in your computer having a glass of wine. And yet you've just become a writer. You are now on your way to being an author. It is that simple and it's that enjoyable.
It's 100% agree. I've published ebooks before: Fighting Your Demons, Attitude Revolution, The Bible of Boxing, a boxing tutorial, and getting them done took a long time. But like you said, the only way you could do that was sit down with a bit of paper, a glass of wine, and write down your notes. And then look through your notes and start to use your notes as a paragraph. Write something down about that memory, and then keep on going down. By the time you get to I'll go to number one again, you've remembered more because it opens up more as you write down your list. And I think you're right, Chris. There's so many people. Everyone has always said to me, I've got a book in me. Some of the stories I tell, it's like a movie. And I'm like, one day I'm going to have to write these stories. And when I come back from Iraq in 2008, that's what I started doing. So I've had a little bit of experience, not a lot, but a little bit of experience with the ebooks and the success they can give me with clients and what groups that we had over the years. But this is a different game for me now. I don't want to self-publish anymore. It's exhausting. It costs a lot of money. It has little return unless you're really successful, So I think.
We will talk about that because it's all part of each other. It's probably a simple way of putting it. Self-publishing. There's actually different types of self-publishing, as I'll come on and explain. And then there's your traditional publishing.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm just going to bomb burst here and talk in no particular order, but in the old days, you had traditional publishers. You had to be a bit let's say, a bit smart, a bit committed, a bit good at English, and you had to have a good imagination to write a book, right? And you generally had quite a bit of life experience behind you. And what happened is you wrote this manuscript, and it had promise. So you could then go to either a traditional publisher directly. So you kind of Pan, Macmillan. Nowadays you've got Virgin, Hodder and Staunton, all these big publishing houses names. If they allowed you to submit directly, you put in your say the first 30 pages of your manuscript, you put a cover letter explaining who you are and why this book is going to just smash the market. And, you know, if you were lucky, and even being a brilliant writer, you still had to have that little bit of perseverance to go to as many publishers until someone said yes, or you had to have that bit of luck. The other option there was to find an agent, somebody who's not as stressed as the publisher because they're getting, 100 manuscripts a day, most of which just go get looked at by an intern and chucked in the bin. The agent had time to get to know you, to see, there's something in this story. I know a publisher that, and they have the power to get the publisher to go, oi, John, have a look at this one. Yeah, and they know immediately if this agent is saying it's worth a look, it's probably worth a look, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's the traditional route. And it has its pros and cons, and it's changed over the years. 20 years ago, if a traditional publisher took on a book, it was because it was going to be good. They had the power to put in every single bookshop in the world, for argument's sake, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, when the internet online shopping came, they had the power to put it out through those channels as well. And you were guaranteed, if they took you on, you were going to make a pretty penny. They'd give you a nice advance. And there you were. Your career as an author had begun. Because you show promise, they'd sign you up for a 3-book deal. If you don't write those books, you got to give your advance back. It's you're not going to get this stuff for free. And yeah, what that did is it meant the writers that made it were bloody successful. Your Stephen Kings, your Willard Price, your
Dan Brown, he did well.
All these kind of names.
Andy,
even your early writers like Duncan Faulkner, who's a friend of mine, the SBS chap. Wilbur Smith, obviously a very big name. He wrote The Leopard Growls in the Darkness or something, wasn't it? Or The Leopard Prowls in the Darkness. It was his first book based on his Africa experience. Bang, university educated guy, top university, loads of experience in Africa, and there you go. Jobs are good on, right? Now, the issue there is for communal garden guys like us, we're not really going to get a look in on that scene unless we happen to be a world-class footballer, in which case someone would write our book for us, or we'd spent 100 days in a life raft, and even if our writing was rubbish, the publisher's like, we want that story. We can edit it. We can sell books, right? And so it limited the market. And a lot of talent, because you're talented, Denny, I'm talented, not, probably not the most talented guy in the world, but obviously I've written 6 or 7 books now. We'd be out there in the ether without a look in. Then Amazon came along, and before Amazon, there was something called boutique publishing. The boutique publishing was something of a con. I'm just, I can't speak for all of it. But what I'm saying is these were organizations that said, hey, Denny, yeah, we like your book. Bullshit, right? They're going to say that to everyone. if you pay us £5,000 up front, we'll get it edited, we'll get it published, and you'll be a millionaire. And of course, what did they do? They probably printed like 5 copies, one to give you back to feed your ego, one to put in their, their online shop window or what. And they had no intention of making you a best-selling author. They just wanted the £5,000. It was called boutique publishing. And then, and boutique publishing, and you still get it now. I get a lot of people come to me with a great manuscript and they're like, Chris, I found this company and they're going to publish on me. And I say, how much do they want? Oh, only 2,500. I'm like, okay, you pay them that 2,500 and you're going to make probably £7 on your book. And that'll be your family that buys it. They've got no intention of putting your book into the market, not on any kind of, they haven't got the power. They haven't got the distributorship. They haven't got the advertising, this kind of thing. Right. So you still get that kind of boutique-y thing going on now. But then, of course, with the advent of Amazon, and that's now KDP, so the Kindle Direct Publishing Platform or something, it's opened it up to everybody. Now, the benefit is, for jacks like us, we can get published. The downside is 95% of what goes on Amazon KDP, so what you call self-publishing, is really poor. I'm not going to swear here because I appreciate people put the effort in, but what it's done is it's appealed to the ego in people that you can be a published author. Well, yes, but the standard of that book compared to what's coming out of a publishing house is like, the Magna Carta and a bit of toilet paper. And I'm not exaggerating. The grammar, the punctuation can be embarrassing. The typesetting's non-existent. You've got the chapter name coming off the top of the page. You've got a cover that looks like it was designed by a 16-year-old in art college, or sorry, in the sixth form. And that's these days kids are bloody good at stuff like that. But I think you know what I'm trying.
Discredit to the 16-year-olds at this age.
The covers on self-published book for years, it looked like the author didn't like themselves. Right? It looked like they didn't want to sell books. They were abysmal, right? Yeah. And that's the situation with self-publishing. But here's the third way, as it were. And I'm going to explain the benefits of going down these routes to you, Denny, if I don't lose track of what I'm trying to say. The third way, especially for somebody with your skills and commitment, is you start your own publishing company, right? It's not difficult. You don't even have to register as a limited company or company's house and anything. You just need a name, right? So let's use the example, Denny's books, right? You're not going to use your own name, but
awesome.
Or Kotal books, right? It doesn't matter. And what that allows you to do, in fact, you can do it as a private individual, is you can buy ISBN numbers. So that is that number there on your book, that barcode. And I won't go into the whys or wherefores, but you go to a company called Nielsen. I think there's a couple of companies. You pay them, let's say, $100, £100, and you can buy 10 ISBN codes, right? The ISBN code is the official international code number of that publication. That is the number used, whatever platform it goes on, whether it's Amazon, whether it's You know, whether they're coding it in your local library, whatever it might be. And what it also allows you to do is when you then publish through KDP Amazon, rather than have this book is published through Amazon, so everyone knows, self-published author, probably going to be a bit crap, right? No, what it allows you to do is put your company name in there, published by Denny's Books, right? What I'm trying to say here, it just gives it a little bit more of a professional veneer. What you then do to keep up that professionalism, and we'll talk about the money that you can make this way afterwards, because it's not all plain sailing, folks, is we'll take the book. First of all, a big thing, it's got to have a cover that's engaging, that people look at and go, you know. This one is done by the wonderful former Marine Andy Screen of Golden Rivet. Andy will work with you so you get what you want, not what he thinks is good, although you come to a happy medium. You get a nice cover, all laid out properly, artwork that's individually done. I mean, he drew that himself. You get a nice, you can't probably see this, but there's a nice faded picture of the life raft on the back there. A little bit of clip art to separate the description from the blurb quotes. The blurb quotes is where you go to another author. I did it literally yesterday. Spoke to one of the world's top ultra runners and said, brother, he's a fellow serviceman, so brother, could you do me a quote? Bang. Didn't even read the manuscript, just ping me the quote, because when you get into the circuit, as it were, people know your work's going to be good, is what I'm trying to say. His quote was more about my commitment. It was a charity. I ran the length of the country. I've just written a book about it. If someone's run the length of the country and written a book, you can afford to just give them a quote, right? Sorry, I'm sidetracking slightly. So you get your blurb quote. This one's written by the wonderful Mark Time, who wrote Going Commando. Yeah, thank you, Mark. You have your logo. Literally for free, you can go on a website, type in Denny's Books, and they will come up with a logo in a split second for you. And you've got a choice of maybe 100 different logos for Denny's Books, right? You're giving it, again, a little bit of that professional veneer. In addition, you have the picture of your next book on there, obviously, promotion, and a little bit of artwork just that ties in with the story. You don't have to do this. When you look at the spine, it's all nice and down the middle. It's all laid out properly. You've got your logo, you've got your author name. Doesn't look like it's been done, by a 17-year-old on Microsoft Windows, right? Well, so that's that. Go into the inside of the book. So all this is laid out by your book cover designer. Quote, obviously, from another author. It doesn't have to be another author. If your mate's called Dave Smith and he's going to say something great about your book, do people really care who Dave Smith is? They probably just think, oh, Dave Smith's like a really good runner, or he's a good author. It's just the finishing touches. Inside the book, that's your cover page. So that is an actual image there. It's not just typing. Logo at the bottom, very simple. Then you have your Verso, I think it's called Verso or Versa, I think it's Verso page, which is this one. And you need to get on a search engine and just type in, what do I write on a Verso page? And it's simple. So this one says, The Drift, first published in Great Britain by Surf Books, 2016. God, where did those 4 years go? www.surfbook.com. surf.com. That's my company. I'm quite proud of it. Surf is a play on my surname, which is Thrall. Thrall, we were the lower class of Viking warriors, so we were the
Motorbike, all that. 2 seconds, motorbike passing. Live in the mountain. All right, back. Sorry about that.
So yeah, so Surf Books is my company name. Bit proud of that. There's your ISBN, the one I talked about. It's just the number, not the barcode. All rights reserved. No part of this publication can be blah 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 reproduced. To be honest, I don't really care about that. But this is what you have in books, right? There's a shout out to my designer, Golden Rivet, his website. There's a very clever number here that they don't tend to use anymore, but it's a 1 to 10 sequence that, depending on how it's numbered, depends on which edition of this book or which edition of this book we're talking about. And then copyright text Chris Thrall 2016, right? There's your dedication. This one's for my son. Map, because this novel requires you to know a little bit about the North Atlantic or the Atlantic Ocean. And there you go. I chose to have a nice little graphic for each chapter heading. There you go, marijuana leaf. And then at the back, you just go to any book on your bookshelf and see how the back's laid out. And it's always going to be the same. So this one's actually got proof written on it because this is an author's copy. This you can order from Amazon before your book goes out, just to check everything's fine. I'll also talk about another publisher that you'll need to use if you're going down this route, and that's called Ingram Spark. You'll get a few blank pages at the end, depending on how the printer's print machine is set out. So on the back thing, I got books by Chris Thrall, acknowledgements, my bio. So Chris Thrall is a former Royal Marine, websites, and there you go, last page of the book. And so what I'm trying to say in essence is everything that a traditional publisher does, you can do now because you've got the power of the internet at your fingertips. You can get the designer, you can type into a search engine, how do I lay out my book? All of it is typeset. So you've got your page numbers nice and neat at the bottom. They're not disappearing off the bottom of the page. I've got the drift here, so the name of the book. I've got Chris Thrall on this page. That's because in this book, I don't have chapter name. I have no names for the chapters, just numbers. So I don't need to have the chapter name here. So I chose the name of the book and my author name. And when you can format all of this in Microsoft Word, and there's a special way you do it, again, you're going to have to learn this. It's too much to say, but you learn how to do section breaks. That way your numbers keep continuously, but this will change per chapter if that's the way you're doing it. If you haven't got chapters, you don't need the section breaks so much, but that's called typesetting. Now, that in essence makes you a published author with a publishing company. Okay. No one's trying to play.
Question, if you don't mind, just a quick question. So you've written 6 publications. Have you published them all through your publishing company and done this process with each of them?
No. Good lesson to learn here. I had 3 traditional publishers. And we can come on and talk about how you land one of those deals. Yeah. There is a backdoor method, which I think everyone's ears have just gone like that. Really? Yes, of course there is. It's called life, right? There's always a bit of nepotism or favorship or appealing to people's senses, right? But I had 3 traditional publishers. The first one, I got to approach me because I got a think outside the box mentality. I just always have had that, right? Don't go the hard way, just go the easy way and think, right? So my first publisher approached me. That publisher then commissioned a rights deal for my book. So my first publisher was in Hong Kong. They commissioned a UK publisher or a European publisher to have the European rights, okay, and the Commonwealth. I then did something which is you will have to do if you go down the traditional publishing route and you're not happy with the way they're treating you and your book. And that is, I gave them a notice of end of contract, right? Which a lot of authors think they can't do, but you can. If you don't think, they will give you a contract when you start out. You will naively sign it because you think, oh, I'm going to be public. What you don't realize is you're signing your life away to this company. And I'm going to be honest here, folks, they're not going to do much for you. And I'll explain why in a minute they don't do much for you. You will end up with your book, great for the first 3 months. It's in the shops. It's selling in the top 1,000 on Amazon. And then suddenly it will be gone. And you're like, John, where's, oh, we haven't printed another, but it's run out on Amazon. People can't buy it. And you know, it's your baby. You've carried it. You've written this thing for 9 months minimum, probably a year. My first book, a year and a half. These folks have just taken it away and you can't do anything other than what you can do through your social media and, you know, trying to get interviews and stuff, all of which you'll be doing yourself.
That was with a publishing company direct?
Yes. I've never had an agent.
Okay.
I had, so the second publisher, I said, sorry, I'm not happy. I actually flew to Ireland to have it out with them. And that put them in a panic because publishing companies don't want gobby authors that are telling people, stay clear of these people, right? And they will very quickly give you your rights back. It's just how it is, right? Once something's on the internet, it's on there for life. So if you just say, I've signed up with these guys and they're just absolutely rubbish, that then is just in the author sphere. Other people are going to read that, right? So I'm digressing slightly. So my third publisher I approached, and I didn't have to do the synopsis and author. It's just a case of an email. Hi, Dave, can you give us a quick bell? I'm Chris Thrall, the author. Book's an international bestseller. And they're like, oh, sure, Chris. You know, you got to use your bit of psychology here, right? And you got to max out. I mean, my book was a bestseller in 2 different countries. So technically that's international, right? You know,
that's a great success. Yeah.
I'm not saying this to try to like be something I'm not. I'm saying it because you got to try and make it as an author. It's not going to be given to you. It's not like the 20 years ago where if they choose you, you're the golden boy, you're the golden calf, you're the new Jesus. As far as they're going to put you around the world. It's not like that anymore, right? So third publisher, yep, Chris, no problem. I didn't even have to meet them, although I did go to London and meet them. The manager walked into his meeting on a Monday and said, yeah, I got this guy, Chris Thrall, it's called Eat and Smoke. It's currently this rank on Amazon or whatever. And they said, yeah. And I was lucky with them. They let me work with the editor because I'm quite, you know, it's my art. It's my story. It's my memoir. It's about the time I almost died from drug addiction, right? It's got to be right. And they let you have your input on the cover, and that's good. Not all companies are going to do that. And it depends what you want from your writing to what you allow. Some people finish a manuscript, it's not really edited or proofread. They just chuck it to the publisher and they're delighted. They're a published author. They don't care that the editor then cuts a third of it out, changes One publisher changed all my grammar to American. My heart fell through the floor, Denny, to see "gotten" in my book. What? And this was an English editor. What were you do? This is what this is the frustration.
I had the very same experience when I wrote Feisting Your Demons. I gave it out to an editor. It cost me a fortune, mate. And when it came back, it was like a Christmas tree. It was just all lit up with all these different things. But what they were trying to do was take away the dialogue more than take away the sure, if I got it wrong, sure. But they were taking away the dialogue of things that were said.
Yeah. And also,
it's also quite a bit of a, for me, just it was quite for me, writing my first book, it was more of a memoir type thing as well, giving advice. It actually made me look at, how I write, because you are writing for an audience rather than writing for yourself, right? So there has to be an adjustment. I mean, 12 years to be an author, selling books online, I've never had a traditional contract or an agent. And I suppose at this stage, I'm listening to everything you're saying, I'm taking it in like a sponge. But it's like, there's so many different ways to do this, isn't there?
Well, it essentially, ignore all the stuff that I'm saying. It boils down to quite a simple way. Unless you're the big celebrity or the big adventurer that's just like Nims Dai, who I chatted with yesterday on my podcast, climbed the world's 14 highest 8,000 meter mountains in 6 months. He actually wrote his book. He got a little bit of support with it. He's English isn't his first language, but he did actually like sit down with a guy and they wrote it. He basically wrote his book. The guy gave him some support. Of course, he's going to get snapped up by this is the dream for publishers that these guys come along, right? Because that's your Christmas book, isn't it? That's going to be on the shelf at Christmas, right? So just one point there I forgot to mention about this. Obviously, you pay an editor. Unless you get to where I'm at, which is through hard graft and learning, because I had GCSE English, which I did in the Marines. So I failed at most things at school, completely self-taught. I now know how to write a book with proper grammar and punctuation. And I know how to cheat, which is a big thing as an author. I know where there should be a comma, but I can get away with taking it out, right? Unless you get to that stage, and I'm also at the stage where I can read the text and I will delete, and I usually do, I delete the best bits in my book. You might be thinking, what? It's called Kill Your Darlings. The bits that are great to you are great because they feed your writer's ego. They don't need to be in the book generally. They're normally an aside.
The hard processing, that part of editing is hard because you'll find a paragraph, everything runs smoothly, the pacing's good, dialogue's good, then you come across a part that just stands out. You know what you wrote and what you felt at the time, but then you delete it, maybe a whole paragraph, and then everything starts to flow again. So I hear what you're saying there, yeah, for sure.
And what I do is I have what I call a scrap document. And if I take something out that's really good, I put it in the scrap document and I save it for a rainy day. I might be able to use it in a blog.
A lot of those.
I probably won't use it, but it's just a good exercise. It's like having a little bit of a safety blanket. So
definitely,
that is the other crucial thing that sets a good writer and publisher out from your self-published stuff is they realize if they're not, and I'm not talking people that are good at English here, I mean people that are good at proofreading and editing, which I am now. And I've been doing this 12 years, right? If you haven't done that, put that time in, what you've got to do is pay someone, and you can find people in your budget. I've worked with the best editor in the UK. I had to pay him about £1,000 a book for my fiction, but
that's cheap,
but he was good, right? He was.
Can I ask you a question? And your books, I apologize, I haven't read your books, and I'll apologize to Ollie All, and I know I mentioned in both of your books, I haven't had a chance to read them yet. Sean Chappell, I haven't had a chance to, because for the last 8 years, I've just been trying to get into this book, and everything I've been writing and researching in that area. So I can't wait to publish this book and let it roll for a little while, so I can sit back and then start to read my mates' books and catch up. But Chris, I didn't. How many pages or how many words is average in your books? Because we're probably hitting about 100,000 words right now.
Right. To give you an idea, I wrote Eat and Smoke. I finished the manuscript in 5 months from nothing. The manuscript was 2 books. It was 240,000 words, which is double that. Is literally, I wrote that much for my first book in 5 months. I then, through the process of learning, went through it and I edited it probably about 12 times, right? It's not a proofread, it's an edit, although obviously I'm doing a bit of proofreading as I go. I then got my manuscript down to 160,000 words, okay? And when it went to my first publisher, I said, I don't want it changed. That's my story. Now, that was the naivety and the inexperience in me. First of all, people just want a book that size. That's a book size. Yeah, you can do the Shantaram thing if your book is really like an absolute epic tale, right? What I did for my third publisher is when they said, sorry, Chris, 160, it's too big for a book. And you got to remember, they got to pay printing cost and storage cost, and their warehouse is only a certain size. So they want nice little books this size, right? Your typical paperback size. So Chris, we need 120. I went, let me do it. They went, okay. So they let me edit the book, and I went through, and without taking any content out, I reduced it a little bit, like sieving the manuscript and getting the real fine stuff, the good stuff out, and keeping the clumpy bits in. So repetition, that can go. If you said in chapter 1, yeah, I joined the Royal Marines Commandos and we had to crawl across a wire and and you said in chapter 26, yeah, in the Royal Marine Commandos, we went on this endurance course, man, and we had to get wet and carry it. It's one of them examples can go, can't it? You've told everyone you're a big, rough, tough commando. It's your ego speaking. Get rid of that, right? Second thing is repetition. Denny woke up in the morning, decided he wanted a cup of coffee. He walked into the kitchen, made a cup of coffee. That is, Denny woke up, put the kettle on, right? Denny woke up, hit the espresso button on the coffee machine, right? You learn to just
unpack
words that are that long. You learn to pick the important ones and make your sentence that. It's exactly the same sentence. It's just much better written. And I got rid of 40,000 words doing that, right? Another one's dialogue. Look at your dialogue. Do you need to say he said, she said, if it's obvious no, of course you don't. If you're like, hi, Denny. Hi, Chris. How are you? I'm fine. How's the boxing going? Yeah, it's going well, mate. Yeah, you still in the same gym? Yes, mate. Right? It's, hey, Denny, you still boxing in that gym? Yes, Chris. Right? You've just cut that much dialogue down to that, and you've said exactly the same thing, right? This is what you learn. So
right.
That was the final point on your publishing company that you're going to start. You're going to pay an editor. An editor is not your mate Dave who did English at school. That is not an editor. An editor isn't your friend Edith who studied English language and literature at Cambridge. She is not an editor, right? Editor is a specific skill, and you can see from what I've just said how an editor's mind works, right?
Yeah.
An editor generally will be a proofreader as well these days. So it's called a proof edit. Don't get hung up on the terminology, folks. You go on Fiverr
many types of editing, and it's all expensive, Chris, you know, as well. If you go down that self-publishing route, and I like you, have been doing a lot of study over English and grammar and how all words work, and mostly for the last few years, that's all I've been looking at, you know. So when we're going through our editing, we're in the fifth edit right now, so we're just getting to that point where we're ready to sort of put out our first 30 pages and get some feedback from people. But the whole point you're making there about, you know, pacing, overused words, you know, repetitive talking, and slowing the pace down with he said, she says, all that sort of stuff. You don't realize how much is in there until you've been given a task, let's say, to go to 120 or 100,000 words. When I looked at this project, when I got Lisa on, I have a bundle of files written over 8 years, books which were written in 1996 by hand, and I put them all on digital. And I have over a million words of these books, right? And the challenge for me was getting it for the first novel. My challenge was to get the story to between 80 and 120. About 90, I think 90 is a good, where we edited right down, so it just came underneath 100,000 words for a first published novel, you know. Sure, the self-help books, you know, 100 pages, you know, but this one, you know, I want it to be a series of perhaps 10 books I can see happening from it. But the hardest part was to just get it into one, get the story started, because all the other stories all just relatively fall into place.
Yeah.
But I absolutely agree with you. I think when we, as I say, I didn't even get my GSC in English when I was at school. It wasn't until I was like 24, 25 that I started realizing that I had to be educated a little bit more. As I went through life, became a data engineer, and then being in Iraq, I had to write a lot in Iraq. So I learned from officers. I was doing an officer's job. I learned from a lot of great officers who wrote really well, and they wouldn't accept shit writing. They just say, no, do that again. But I understand the process of editing is frustrating and heartbreaking for the author.
Well,
but
Danny, a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, Chris, just you know, when you get your publishing deal, they'll do all that for you." Right? Whoa, no. You are in such a competitive market, right? They get so many manuscripts across their desk, or manuscripts that don't even make it as far as their desk because the agent has gone, that ain't good enough for that, you know. That when you present your manuscript or your first 3 chapters or whatever they require of you, it has to be good. It has to be edited before it goes to an agent or a publisher. Because if they read the first line and it starts off, "My name is Denny, and I was born in Scotland, and I joined it," they're just, fail.
you know,
That ain't interesting. There's a million people in the world writing to that level at the moment.
and especially now there's COVID, so there's more authors hitting the scene all the time. I mean, I'm watching, you know, I watch closely now because I certainly didn't until about a month ago, but now I'm getting to that point in the book. I'm watching closely at publishing houses, agents, writers, forums, and all that sort of stuff. And what I'm seeing is there's a lot of people who became debut books and published in COVID. So I think the market's a little bit saturated, even more so now, because people are publishing more books, because people are reading more books. The market's gone up. It's exciting. It's scary. I'm going into an area of business I don't know. You know what I mean? So, like, just listening to you, I'm learning a lot. You know, I just want to learn as we can before we shoot off and sort of embarrass ourselves.
I hope you can watch this video back, Denny, because you'll probably learn more the second time around.
Better will, yeah.
I'm going to tell you now the technique the big publishers use, which you need to be aware of. Okay, not many people know this. It's certainly not public information. Even the big publishers like your Hodder and Stoughton, your Virgin, gosh, you know, can go on and on, but you guys know what I mean. The people that you'd love to strike a deal with. What they do is they will take on, let's say, 2,000 books a year. Depends how big they are, right? They're a bit smaller than 200. They know when they take those 2,000 books on that only 5 of those books will sell, right? You're probably going, what? That doesn't make sense. Bear with me. Those 5 books, so you're talking your Bravo 20, your J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter, you know, the stuff that just becomes household name. They sell so many thousands, if not a million copies, that they make the publishing house, they pay the staff, the wages, the advertising, the building rent, property rent, the printers. These 5 books alone each year pay for their whole operation. The rest of the books are just window dressing, right? They know they will probably make a loss. Some of them will break even. Some of them will make maybe a decent bit of profit. Nothing like these 5 though, right? And the vast majority of those books will fail and they will lose money on them, right? And those authors will not get, that's it. That, it's almost a bit like the scenario where a Hollywood film company will buy the rights to your book, Denny, and you'll be like, yay, Hollywood deal. I'm going to be on the big screen, right? No, what they're doing, they're buying your rights. So your book can't be made into a film because they've also bought the rights to this book and they're going to make that one into it, right? You've signed this 10-year, like, non-disclosure, all-exclusive contract to them, not realizing it's because they're not going to make your book into a film, and you're signed in for 10 years without, it will say, by agreeing to this contract does not mean it will be cleverly written and it will be in tiny small print, right? It's a little bit similar with these publishing houses. And that is why you see the bargain basement bin in the supermarkets and where the book, you can buy a book that was $9.99 a month ago. It's now 99p. Or they'll pulp them. They'll just take them and make as much money pulping the book. And this is the cruel nature of commerce. It's just the way it works. It doesn't mean you're not an exceptional author. It doesn't mean you're not a great artist. It certainly doesn't mean you haven't put the effort in. It just means that your book didn't quite get that bite in the market, and it was kind of acquired, you can say. The acquisition was more to just have some
hear this
dressing.
We hear this often, don't we? Like I know that. Can you hear that? That's the turkey, like little lizard. Yeah, it's a little lizard that's about that size. It'll have about another 3 or 4 of them before it'll stop. Now, in the jungle, man, we're right here.
Hey, that is an actual sound effect bonus for people listening through headphones now.
We're in the jungle in Thailand. This is what's going on.
It's like that cinema sound you get, the 3D stuff. Yes. So
so we know. So the way I work in my mind, I just wanted to get this book done. The last 6 months, it was like, I need to get this finished. I want to get it finished so I can get on with the next one, and the next one. I'm trying to break into a career as an author. Got the boxing gym, got other things going on. COVID has made all that stop. So right now, it's like, I would like to go out. I would like, as an author now, having spent many years writing, to monetize on this story. At the same time, I think the story would be very relevant to the world as it sits today. I understand that the editing process, and it's exhausting. And it would never stop, actually, your editing process. If you didn't say stop, it's enough. We could keep on changing the story until we don't get the book out again. My heart right now with it is, I think I would like to engage. I know you've said you've not done this yet, but I would like to engage in an agent, so that the publishing company is not then responsible for getting the book to the marketing as well. So an agent, as far as I can read and understand, an agent will take that role on. They're a professional in this industry for like getting like a product to the market and then pushing it. If it's good enough, if it's not good enough, then of course you don't get an agent.
let's finish off this kind of publishing thing, and I will come on to that, Denny. And for friends at home, I know I'm talking a lot. It's just because this was kind of the
theme that
this is
fiction
kind of
value
the,
criticism.
yeah, this is kind of the pub. This isn't like a podcast. This is for people who genuinely want to become published authors or even write a book, right? So here's the thing. If you are like my friend Lou, who skied across Antarctica, the second guy ever to do so. The first guy was Colin O'Brady, right? Both now have top publishing deals, right? I won't say what advance they got because it's not, it's their business. But let's just say Johnny, the footballer, writes that kind of book. He's going to get £70,000 advance. So for your common or garden guy like us, Danny, 2 years, maybe 3 years, nice salary. Where you live, you can make that stretch to 5 years, right? It's a good amount of money. Yeah. They've still got to sell that amount of books. If not, you got to pay that money back. It's not just like given to you. If your book flops, right? But the publishers are not stupid. They know that if you skied across Antarctica, the second or first guy to do so, your book's going to be a good stocking filler for Christmas, right? And they know these algorithms, right? Now, those two guys might decide never to write a book ever again. Well, who cares? They've made 70 grand on their book, right? If they do write a book, it's because they've had an awesome adventure again, and the publisher's like, yeah, we'll have some of that. So they're kind of set, right? They if you write an awesome fiction book, and it's really hard to get onto the market with fiction, and we'll talk about that, right? But let's just say you are the J.K. Rowling, right? They see something in your book, little clue, if it's got a lot of Satanism or witchcraft in it, it's no surprise that the corporations want to publish that shit, right? That's a bit of a political aside, but what happens is your book does well, of course they'll sign you for a 3-book deal, so you're off, okay? But this is the exception to the rule. It really is the exception. So what you're faced with then is getting a middle of the range publisher, or what we call a small publishing house. What they're going to do is they'll see merit in your work. They'll realize that they can do one print run, which will generally be about 2,000 books, might be 5,000, depends how, what scope they've got. And they will work the mathematics and the finances in their head to see what profit they'll make if they can shift those books. They'll have deals with certain distributors that guarantee your book will get, say, like my book got into Heathrow Airport, right? Got to number 6 bestseller in Heathrow, which is kind of like a mad dream come true for me, right? But again, it's kind of like window candy. You'll sell, at first you'll get, your first month, 175 books will go out. The second month, 165. Third month, 130. Fourth month, 70. And suddenly you're already, right? What these companies do, Danny, you've got to remember, is they've signed you up for your Kindle rights as well for the lifetime, for the rest of your life, if indeed you just sign a contract without negotiating. And they know when Danny, no one's going to buy his paperback, we can still have it on Amazon for $3.99 and Kobo for $4.99 and iTunes or whatever the platforms are. And even if we sell 30 copies a year, well, we're still going to make 60% of £4, which is, £2.40. We're still going to make money off this guy Denny's hard work for the rest of his life, of which you're going to get paid probably like 9p a book, Denny, right? For your paperback, you're only going to get about 10p. You got to remember, they might be paying you 10%, but it's 10% of the money they make, not the price of not the book cover. It depends how your contract's written, right? So that's your smaller publisher, quite wily. right? They won't be like, Denny, you got to speak to the News of the World tomorrow. Denny, we've got an interview in the Telegraph. Denny, could you hot foot it up to London to go and talk to this TV? That, unless you're incredibly with an incredibly good publisher, it doesn't happen, mate. They don't care about that. They just know the algorithm that they'll sell 2,000 book. If they sell that 2,000 books in 2 months, because for some reason yours just, well, of course they're going to print again, aren't they? Right? Of course they are. But generally speaking, go on any kind of small-time publisher's website, look at the books that they're selling. Let's say true crime. So your football gangsters, your London gangsters, your Craig Twin type of literature. Then go on Amazon and look at the bestseller ranking. If it's anything over 1,000, right, which it will be, 99% of the publishers' books won't be in the top 1,000, right? It's not making any money. Sorry to say it. It's ticking over slowly, but it's not going to make you rich, and it's not going to make them rich, Danny, right? If a book's like 160 on Amazon ranking, yeah, that's a book that's doing well, right? The highest I ever had, oh God, on the overall Amazon ranking, so every book in the UK, I think I got to 160 once, right? Generally, it's round about the 1,000 to 5,000 when it first came out. But as soon as they let the print run drop, right, and you lose that inertia that you've worked so hard for your social media to create, you never get back up to that, not unless you go on Loose Women or something, or you get on some other TV program, right? Or you go and, bloody get arrested for some despicable crime, and everyone wants to know who Denny Denholm is, right? So
that's already happened. This book's not about that.
So that is the pitfall, is the Kindle trap. So you need a clause in your contract if you go with a small-time publisher to say, if you drop my print book, I get the Kindle rights back. You're not sitting on my book for the rest of my life if you ain't doing no work for it, right? And you're certainly not getting 60% of $4.99 when I get 10p, right? This is why it's such a fickle industry, okay? Now, what I want to say now, Danny, here is the conundrum, okay? Here is the conundrum. Unless you are a very good writer, your work is properly produced, so edited and proofread, unless it hits the market, and guys like me and you, Denny, we ain't writing for the market. We're writing for ourselves because we are artists. We're not mass, if we wanted to be consumers, we'd write, I was the toughest Marine and I fought in Iraq. We'd write that kind of, there's no criticism, by the way. I'm just saying you're going to get a market if you write that stuff, right? Or we would write, I'm Elton John, the Elton John biography. Did you know that Elton slept with the Watford football team? We'd go for that mass market, guaranteed to get signed up as a deal, right? We're not like that. We're artists. We want our work to represent ourselves. That means we're not necessarily hitting that button with the publishers, right? And so what that means is it becomes, even with an agent, or even to find an agent is what I mean. Once you get an agent, you're kind of all right. They've seen something in your work, right? They're probably going to get you a deal. You're going to get a phone call. Would you accept this offer with this company? And most people are obviously going to go, oh yeah, please. But getting an agent is now as difficult as getting a publisher used to be, because the agents have got everybody coming to them with work. All of it is properly proofread, edited. The stories are generally Well, I mean, most books are worth a read. All stories are story. It's in our DNA to read stories, right? What I'm getting to is it's hard to land that deal, Danny, right? It's hard to land that traditional publishing deal. The conundrum is, so then if you go the self-publishing route, even if you do it through your own company, so it's all, it's just as professional as any other company out there, you're going to struggle to sell books. You just are. You're going to put your book on Amazon. The other way you do it is you go through KDP on Amazon. It used to be called Smash. Can't remember what it was called, but Create Space. And Amazon are very good then at selling your book through their platform, at giving you all the good royalties, and you get the price down as low as you can, sort of thing, right? But Amazon, your book won't be bought in shops. Shops won't deal with Amazon. For obvious reasons, Amazon's putting them all out of business, right? So if someone walks into Waterstones in Plymouth and they say, hey, I want this great book by Denny Denholm, at least the shop in Plymouth, if you go through Ingram Spark as well as Amazon, can go, oh yeah, it's listed here with Ingram Spark. We'll order you a copy in for Monday, right? Have that. If for some reason you become some international personality tomorrow, well, even more of a personality, Danny, those shops might just start having your book on the shelves, right? You can get your book on the shelf through Ingram Spark. If you go and talk to your local bookshop and say, hey, listen, I'm a local author. Could you do us a favor and, get 20 copies of my book? And they're like, yeah, sure. They say that because what they can do if they don't sell them is just return them anyway, Danny, and they don't lose anything. You lose, right? So that's the conundrum is it's very hard to get a traditional publishing deal, but if you self-publish, very few people other than your mates, are gonna buy your work. Wait before everyone gets despondent and thinks I'm putting everyone's nose out of joint. That is because
long this because I can't lose it.
Denny, but that is because the landscape of the art of the writing business has changed. Now you need to approach it a different way. One way is Jordan Rivet. If you want to social search engine Jordan Rivet, anyone, she's a friend of mine. She started, I think she left school or uni, did a few years in a job and went, do you know what? She came to my book launch in Hong Kong and she'd written one bloggy book by then. She wrote about going to the Los Angeles Olympics, I think it was, the Beijing Olympics. And she wrote a little Kindle book about it. From that point, when I published my first book, she published hers. She has way surpassed everything I've done. She is a beast. I mean that, Jordan, respectfully, right? But she's got the author name. She's got the discipline to sit in Starbucks every day writing, and she'll do that all day long. She'll write X amount of 1,000 words every day. She can produce a whole novel every 3 months. So she produces about 3 to 4 books a year. She does them in box sets. So when someone buys one, they're going to buy the next, the next, the next. She writes for a certain audience. So she writes this kind of mysterious fiction that's very popular with young people. She has a cover that just looks all kind of like, I don't know if bejeweled is the right word, but looks all, looks very, very arty, really good covers. And you can get them quite cheap, folks. You can just go online and order ready-made covers, just put your name, your details on it, right? And I tell you what, she is a shining example to me, Danny, because she has smashed it by writing with no backstory like me. We got our marine stories, we got our war stories, we've got our adventure stories, we got our druggy stories, we got a lot of stuff to write. Jordan hasn't had that. She just sat down and wrote fiction. She started. I'm guessing the work she does now is a way, way, way higher standard than what she started, because that's the nature of writing. And she has forged a best-selling career by doing that. So when people come to me and say, Chris, I've written my first book. How is it? Facebook? Do I need Twitter? How do I promote? I say, write your next book. Then write another, then write another. Because if you write one book, Denny, I'm just going to say this how it is. You ain't going to make it, and that book's going to fail. You got to write that book, then you got to have a backup, so the people that like that one not only can now buy this one, but they can talk about this one, right? So when they're going on social media, they're not just going, I read Denny's book. Buy it, folks. They're going, I read Denny's book. Now I'm on his next one. It's even better, right? You're just maximizing your exposure in the marketplace. Once you've got 10 books, someone might pick up this one in a secondhand shop or download it, whatever, and it all starts to bounce off itself, and you start to get that inertia, which allows you to earn money to write as a living. So, sorry, I'm going to pause and take a break there. Does all this make sense, mate?
100%, mate. Everything you're saying, I've done a lot of research on this. A lot of the stuff you're reaffirming that I already knew. And my question when I was asking you, I was like, Chris, can you guide me into avoiding pitfalls? You've discussed so much there, man. At the end of the day, we knew when we get to the end of this novel, our first novel, I've done books before, self-published. I did well with Fighting and Demons. Hundreds of emails a day when 11 years ago when it was launched, and for 3 years it launched me into a career of speaking and doing tours and workshops and doing things online. So I had a little bit of a sniff of that. I'd just come back from Iraq. I enjoyed it. It was mostly to do with boxing, a little bit of self-development. It was good. But going into this next part of my life, having sold those books and realized how much effort you've got to put into keep that rolling. I mean, 100 emails a day is a lot, so back then you were using Aweber, for example, to email 100 people a day. But it was a success that came a little bit quicker than I anticipated, but the market was different back then. Ebooks were just coming out. Amazon wasn't even part of this yet. It was all ClickBank and buying directly from the website. So I found that exhausting. Going into this novel idea, it's a good story. I think it's a good story. It's well edited, I think, so far. The storyline's good, the plot line's everything's strong. It's current and to date, even though it goes into the future and it goes to the past. I understand exactly what you're talking about in the process of editing. And, there's nothing worse when you look at your manuscript, you think it's done, and you print it out, then you read it and you're like, you can see all these mistakes again. It seems like an ongoing process, right? So the story was finished 4 years ago. This has been the last 6 months of putting that story into, hopefully, it's always like that. It's like handing in your exam at the end, isn't it? It's like, did I do this properly? I think it's strong. I've given it to other authors that just a little bit here and there as we went. They think it's strong, giving me the confidence that it's strong. So like everyone has always advised me in the beginning, write a book. The hardest part's the war that you face when you finish the book, and the war being getting it published. They always said, and even all the seminars and the things I've watched online, everyone says, be prepared to get hurt. You want to give it to someone and you expect and hope that someone's going to say, thanks, I'm going to give you a big bit of money. You look after that. You carry on working. You do all these different things. That's a dream come true. And I'm not going to lose that dream. Same as being a boxing champion or a boxer. I'm not going to think I can't win. Even if I get knocked down, I had 8 fights in a row at one point in my boxing career. Then I joined the Marines. So there's always a goal, and I can't see the end of it being a failure. But I know it's going to be challenging, and we've got to make decisions.
Yeah.
Coming into this conversation, my goal, I've picked out 2 or 3 agents that I think would be perfect for this type of genre or this type of challenge. I'm not 100% sure which genre I would be going in. It certainly would be a fantasy drama, fantasy thriller, There's a bit of horror in there. There's a bit of eroticism in there. There's a bit of religion in there. All sort of going different directions. I think what the public want. I've written this book for the audience rather than when I wrote Fighting Your Demons. I wrote this book for me. I wanted that book to be there for my son and for me to look back when I was feeling down. How do I get strong? So that and I dedicated that book to Gabriel, my son, as well. That was a different gig. I wanted to get my leadership skills caught in a book, and that was what Fighting Your Demons was. Attitude Revolution in 2015 was more, again, giving tips of self-development, how to get better attitudes and how to look at that. There's a really great book. I loved writing that book, and it made me a better guy. The boxing stuff, I've always done that. This is a novel, a fantasy novel. It's you know, it's something different, but it's now been put away. And I believe that I was writing to the audience in this one. I was certainly writing to the victims of satanic ritual abuse. I was writing to the victims of child abuse. I was writing to perpetrators of it too. Really, there's a lot of stuff in there that and that's not the only audience, but at the same time, I was trying to bring a general audience through adventure into the reality of why the world's confused. We have Christians fighting Muslims, Muslims fighting Muslims, Muslims fighting Christians, Buddhists fighting Muslims, and it's just continuing, and everyone's fighting about the wrong thing. Though the book in its essence says the three religions, the Buddha, the Jesus, and the Muhammad, they're all getting on fine, you know, in heaven. So we got to fucking realize, hey, maybe we should get on a little bit better and stop blaming each other on our religions to stop fighting. So there's lots of underlying themes throughout the book. So in regards to writing for the audience, I thought I have right now, so I'm quite confident in that, you know, and that's why I'm sort of thinking I would rather have an agent or someone who I could talk to, who could give me feedback, and I could rewrite or write more or write less. Or I'm already on the second book, just heavily editing this one right now, and you know it's exhausting, it takes a lot of time. We've already started the second book, so we're already beginning running away with the second book.
Good.
I reckon I could pull off, if I had financial resources, I reckon, and of course it comes down to the use like this, but if I have financial assistance on this project, I could pull out 4 books a year with the content that's already written. You know what I mean? So it's really, I said to Lisa, you know, I feel like I'm just sewing the plots together. You know, like now that I'm going through this, it's like, you know, in chapter, like you said, in chapter 1 it says this. It's like dropping a seed. In chapter 5, chapter 6, that blossoms, and then another one. And so I've been the last few weeks maybe just going around the story, just making sure that seed matches that. You know, so everything ties up. And it just takes time, Chris. I don't know, I sit here for 10 hours a day at times, and then like, I've not even eaten yet. You know, I've got to get up and do it again because I just get so lost in it. So it's been great. So the writing process, I'm happy with. It's been a great journey. This process, I realize I'm going to war. And you've just really told me a lot of the things that I'm going to have to face going into this war, finding the right person.
I just wanted to make the point, Danny. I'm sorry if I'm not being negative. This is to people at home. I'm being realistic, which is good. Because if you wander out into a maze without a compass and you've got a blindfold on, you're not going to get to the end of it, right? One sec, Danny. I'm just going to pause 1 second. What I wanted to come on to, Denny, is everything that I'm saying is actually positive, because it gives you a roadmap now, a realistic one, rather than what most of us had as authors when we had to learn all this. We were deluded. We was wandering out into the maze and just smacking into hedges and wondering why, and the pain it causes you. Believe me, the pain it causes by not having the right deal for your baby, your you know, part of your life, is way more painful than having to listen to a podcast with a big-eared guy telling you that maybe your dream isn't. You got to tweak it a bit. Honestly, we've got to get this right.
That's why I reach out to you and other authors as well. It's like, you guys have done this. I'm going into this, and it's a blind new industry. There's everywhere I read is like, you're going to get heartbroken. You're going to get heartbroken. You're going to get heartbroken. And I'm like, okay. So rather than like you're just saying there, go out blind and just take the heart beatings or take the beatings of my heart. It's like, right, okay, I want to be thick-skinned. I want to get the right, like you said before, I want to make sure I got on the right path. I don't waste time. I don't want to disrupt this heart of myself anymore. then I've been disheartened over the years of writing this. I want to just get someone who's willing to pick this up with me, run with me, and see if there's energy behind it. If there's not, then maybe we'll just decide to reject.
There's always energy behind whatever you write, and this is for our friends at home. It's how we position ourselves and we pitch our work and we reorder the work so that it's going to hit the marks. The two things I just want to finish up by saying, and then I'll open the floor to you, Denny. You can ask me all those questions that I would have wished I could have asked a published author back in the day. The two things I was going to say, so I'm going to talk about how to approach an agent or a publisher using my backdoor approach. And then I was going to talk about why it's actually not a bad thing if you don't get the traditional deal. So the approaching a publisher and agent is obviously a bit of nepotism always works. If you know someone that knows someone, then obviously go and ask them, right? I've picked up the phone to my publisher and said, John, got a guy here, got a great book. He's actually had it self-published and sold this many copies. The publisher's gone, yeah, we'll take that. The next thing you know, this chap's got a publishing deal, right? I've also had the chap then on the phone to me a month later going, Chris, why did you let me sign this? They're doing this to my book. They're doing this. He doesn't think my jokes are funny. And I'm like, dude, you wanted me to get you traditionally published. I told you these are the pitfalls. I told you, right? So the first is obviously exploit all your angles. If you're going to approach an agent or a publisher, like I say, the work's got to be polished perfectly. You've got to have an interesting biography about yourself, which sells you. Why are you a good guy that people are going to want to read your books, right? So if for example, you're a woman that's worked in the ghetto in Hong Kong, saving problematic heroin users from certain death by bringing them to Jesus, right? I'd put that in your bio, right? Because I'd want to read your book, and I'd probably want to read your second one, and I know you've got that rich history, Denny. If you haven't, you've got to think, how can I pitch? You've got to don't undersell yourself, right? They want a guy, because it's all public image these days. It's all social media and video and interviews and this kind of thing. So it's all got to be good. You've got to have your work perfect. You've got to have a good introduction letter. If they say, send me 3 chapters, send them 3 chapters. Don't send them your whole manuscript. Don't send them 1 chapter. If they want it 1.5 spaced, 1.5 space your sentence, your lines. Because if you don't, you might get some intern that's been told, if they don't follow the instruction, bin it. That's not the kind of, this kind of thing.
I believe, yeah.
Thing to mention is don't get disheartened. You don't know, and this is sadly how it works, is they generally get the interns to read the manuscripts. How the hell does a 21-year-old graduate, 22, 20, understand what it is to be a Royal Marines Commando fighting in a war zone, having come through drugs, alcohol, whatever, the story might be, the bio might be? They might just look at, that isn't about wizards who can, fly on, bin that. So what I'm trying to say is don't think just because you've sent it that they've really read it and that they really know you, because they don't. And it's no reflection on your work, right? The other thing is I find professionals just aren't really that good. I don't mean, well, maybe I am being disrespectful. I just think that human beings are becoming more and more failed as we move on, and they don't actually recognize a good story. I mean, for example, my Eat and Smoke memoir, and this is not sour grapes, I genuinely don't care. In fact, not sure if I'd want it to be turned into a film. But why are they making Police Academy 587, the return of the police cadets, when they could make Eating Smoke, which would be one of the best films ever made. Like, it'd be along the lines of the Midnight Express or something, you know, a real earthy, deep, meaningful film that people would leave the cinema and go, bloody hell, right? So don't take all this personally. It's a game. It's like you're fishing for pearls. If you approach one publisher and you get a knockback, well, feel bad once you approached 200 publishers, but not before that. 100 minimum, right? You've heard all the tales. How many people? Stephen King sent off so many letters before he got his deal, right? It's just the way it works. Now, my backdoor approach, Denny, was I realized this was a tough gig, right, to get the publishing deal. So I thought, let's be a bit sneaky here. Let's approach some authors that are writing the stuff that I've written, you know, this kind of druggy, true life stuff. And I wrote to 4 authors. I'm a kind of genuine guy, so I made sure I bought their book first, even if I hadn't read all of it. At least I did them the honor of buying, the respect of buying their book before I approached them. And I just ping them an email by going to their website. Hi, John, Chris here. I'm a budding author. I think I've got quite a life story to tell and Would you be kind enough and read my first chapter and give me some feedback, right? You are rarely going to find an author that says no. Unless you write to someone that is just so, you know, maybe Ant Middleton, I'm sure he's so busy, just doesn't have time to respond to that. But most mid-range authors will be delighted that you've asked. That they actually wrote to them. Some of them wrote back to me and said, yeah, sure. Why did you ask me? They were quite honored that I'd.
Yeah.
The 3 of them wrote back with invaluable advice, which changed my writing career. It changed my outlook on editing and on writing, on the game itself. One of them didn't get back to me. And funny enough, years later in my career, he's been the only guy that I've actually rucked up with. I don't mean I rucked up with him. I mean, this guy tried to fuck me over, and now it all made sense why he didn't even have the decency to reply to my, you know, complete egomaniac is what I'm trying to say. So
there's a few of them. Why
did I do it that way? Well, like I said, I was being a bit kind of duplicitous. Is I knew, because I knew that my work was right, like I'm saying, folks, get it right, get it edited, get it proofread. I knew that one of them, Denny, would write back to me and go, do you know what, Chris, this is good. I'm going to speak to my publisher about you. And that's exactly what happened. Right. I got a phone call from my publisher in Hong Kong. Hi, Chris, Pete here. Yeah, heard you're writing a book. Heard it's quite good. Yeah, sure. Okay. As soon as you finish writing it, we'll publish it. I was like, yeah, do you want me to send? No, that's, you know, you obviously know what you're doing. Just send us a manuscript. Denny, that was my dream come true.
That's a dream.
That was my, I was sat there thinking, who should I phone? I'll phone my dad. Dad, yeah, I'm a published author. Oh, yeah, all right, son. Yeah. Anyway, just going to go and plant the potatoes. Oh, all right. Bye, Dad. Oh. You know, it really was like that.
No one to share your excitement with. That's all.
But what was it, Danny? It was, I'd set my goal, I believed in myself, and I'd taken action. And I'd put the work in. And it'd come good, right? That if you don't do those components, you're never going to, you know, unless you're, like I say, some celebrity football star. So that was it. That was how I got published without ever having to send a manuscript off or an introduction letter.
That's a mate.
We can take that, you know, in a different direction and say, what's to stop you going on LinkedIn, say, which is an incredibly helpful platform for me now. I get a lot of my podcast guests, just they follow me on LinkedIn, and I follow them back, or whatever the thing is. I friend them or make a business. I say, hey, John, you've got an interesting story. You want to come on the podcast? Denny, they're always chuffed to bits. These guys are like legends. They've done stuff in their lives way more than I could ever have. You know, we're talking combat chopper pilots flying gunships in 3 tours of Afghanistan, and they're very humble, and they say, Chris, thank you so much. Right. So let's just say you go on LinkedIn, you find you go to your publishing website, you find who they're who's in charge of like the fiction section for adults or thrillers or history, whatever it is, that you've got your biography, the guy that commissions biographies. You find their name, find them on LinkedIn, friend them or whatever, send them a polite message. Hi, I'm Denny. Dave, I see that you're into boxing. I'm a boxing trainer in Thailand. You couldn't do a favor for a mate, could you? And just read. Oh, Denny, yeah. How's it? I've been to Thailand. I've been to Koh Tao. Do you know it? Yeah, that's where I live. Do you see what I'm saying? It's the backdoor approach, Danny. It's forget like trying to go, forget trying to go through the front door like the SAS. Walk in the back door like the Coleman. You know what I mean? You've got Facebook and stuff now. Everyone has a Facebook. Pretty much everyone has a Facebook account. You're not being a pain here. You're not going to be in like an asshole. You got to think. You got to do it respectfully, right?
Yeah.
How many ex-military must work in publishing houses, or be agents, or be published authors that will speak to their agent on your behalf because you're a fellow bootneck, Marine, or you're a fellow sailor or airman, whatever it is. You've got these methods. So yeah, I'd say exploit them. To those people that maybe haven't got the life experience to do that sort of thing, because they haven't been of this or that or the other. Get some life experience, isn't it? This is why I'm always saying get out and smash your life. So that's about it. And the final thing I was going to say is there's no downside to self-publishing your book, right? What I mean is, especially if you do it the way I said, by setting your company up, having a nice logo and some ISBN numbers and a nice cover. You can have a website, just says if you go to Surf Books, it just says Surf Books. You click the Surf Books and you can email me. That's it. I don't even man that website, right? And by going that route, there's a lot you can do. You can put a link to your book on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your website. You can start a Facebook group for people who have been the victims of satanic abuse. You can put tweets out, hashtag SRA, satanic ritual abuse. You might like there's ways you can explore to start building a community and a momentum online. Remember, you only need 1,000 people that like you, and they'll take you through your career. That's what I'm doing now, finding now with the podcast, meeting some lovely people. They don't care if I do a podcast about a digital watch. They just like supporting me, right? And I love them for it, and they've changed my life. So you can start doing that. Then, of course, you do the thing I said, you get your next book out. You don't rest on your laurels, because you won't make it that way. Even even the guys that get the £70,000 deals, they've still got to write another book, right? You get your next book out. You make it available to people. So many authors will bring out their first book and they've got it for $14.99 on Amazon, and the Kindle is $8.99. It's like, are they deluded? They're up against the best-selling authors in the world, and their books are for $2.99. You know, paperback $6.99. What are they thinking? Why are they going to buy your, you know, rubbish self-published effort when they can get Stephen King or Tom Clancy, right? It's about judging the market. My fiction's 99p. It's really good. I could put it up if I wanted to be of the kind of, hey, I've written this book, you're not getting it for 99p. That's fine. That's fine. I just have to expect not to sell as many copies, right? You can do a thing on Amazon, you put your book for free. You can put it for free for a week. When you do that, it generally goes from selling 2 or 3 copies a month up to 200 a day, 200 the first day, 150 the second, and it goes down like, because a lot of people, they got their eye out for that, right? You can upload your book into torrent files, that people can download it. You can, you know, you can do all these things. So it's not a bad thing to go that route. It just means you've got to work your project differently. It isn't just a case of writing a book, giving it to your publisher, and they take care of it for you, and you start writing the next one. Damian Lewis, I'm talking to him tomorrow night. You might want to watch that. It might be a bit late for you, Denny, but you can watch the podcast after the live show, obviously.
Yeah, I will.
And he's had his publisher for 20 years now. Got a great relationship with him. Obviously, all he has to do is do the manuscript, isn't it? And those guys know his style. They know how to finish it. He writes on all SAS type stuff. So, of course, there's a market. You can probably write one SAS book, then write another and another. And a third of this book's probably in this one, and a third of that. You know, I'm not saying Damien's like that because he's a very professional man, but what I'm saying is you get kind of cross content, don't you? You get cross ideas even, which makes it easier to start writing. So none of it's negative. It's all good. There's avenues available to all of us now. We just might have to be prepared not to be the J.K. Rowling on week 1 of printing our book, you know, and why would you want to be? Because, you know. So over to you, Denny. Ask me anything that you like, and I'll shut up for a minute.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you very much for number one, taking the time to piece this together, to be able to teach me everything that you have taught me today. I think it's very invaluable. I've watched a lot of stuff online, and I've certainly taken a lot from what I've watched online, but what you're telling me from a first-hand knowledge today is amazing. And it's sort of cemented and taught me things that I didn't know. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking the time and doing this for me. I know this will help a lot of people. That's guaranteed. So I've got a couple of questions, and I think you covered most of the stuff, but I think certainly most authors, they're going to be writing a book to get some sort of monetary return. What would you've written 6 books, you've published 6 books, 3 traditionally and 3 by your own publishing company. That's right?
Well,
in comparison,
it was my first book that was published 3 times by 3 different publishing houses.
Oh, right.
I didn't explain, with no disrespect to any of those publishing houses, although one of them does get a bit of disrespect, but let's not be sour grapes. If you're an independent guy like me, Denny, and you can tell I'm passionate about what I do,
yeah,
it was a painful process. You know, I don't mean these particular publishers. I mean working with publishers in this day and age. If you care about your work and you want it presented in a certain way, and you want it to be promoted, you don't want to see your book fail. It's taking you 18 months. Took me 6 months to write, or 5 months to write it. Took me a year and a month, Denny, to learn how to edit it. Right?
Yeah, it's a long process.
You know, so I found it a really painful experience. For example, to rock up at a book launch, that you've organized yourself, that you might have flown halfway around the world at your own expense, right? You're never going to get that money back. It's not a huge amount of money in selling books, right?
Yeah.
Or when you've got one book, there's not a huge amount of money. Even if, $70,000 advance, you're going to spend that in 2 years, right? And then what do you do, right? And to rock up at a book launch and then, like, the publishers forgot to get some books printed. So, you're the number 2 best-selling author in the country and there's no books for people to buy. So you don't make the number 1 spot because there just aren't books. It's all done on sales through the bookshops. There aren't, your book's not available. It's got to wait now 3 weeks to be reprinted at the height, the pinnacle of your career. Oh, mate. And you're not going to get an apology for that. You're not going to get, oh, Chris, look, there'll be no, it's just like a void. There's nothing. It's like, dude, where's my book? Oh, and it's always someone else's fault, isn't it? It's the distributor, or it's the printer, or it's the this. And a very painful experience, Danny. So my first book was 3 publishers. And after that, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to take charge of my work now. I'm going to put it through my company, my own company. I'm going to take all the royalties, even if they're significantly less, but I will get those royalties for the rest of my life, and my son will get them for the rest of his life. The Kindle will be on there. You don't have to do anything for a Kindle. This thing got to be printed. But even though Amazon take care of that obviously for you, and so do Ingram Spark. But if I see £1.80 trickle into my bank at the end of the month, do you know what? I'm going to be so bloody chuffed about that. I've earned that money. I got the designer, I'll be prepared to take a loss, even if it costs me £1,000 to get edited, and I don't make that back for 10 years. I don't care. Life isn't about the money. It's about, sometimes just about doing the right thing. And of course, what happens is, if you're committed, you keep putting out to the universe and you keep trying to be selfless, the universe gives back to you. So what happened? Started a podcast, didn't I? Off the back of the podcast, it became a popular podcast. In the podcast, you'll see me go, hey, folks, the book I'm talking about is this. What happens? You go to your Amazon, you sold 7 more books that day than usual. Yeah. At the end of the month, you're getting in the hundreds of pounds on Amazon, as opposed to like the 35 quid that you were making before, right?
Yeah. So I suppose that was the crux of my question there, to balance out the 3 publishers that publish your one book in comparison to you having 5 books from your own publishing company. What's the weight in that? Does it even out, or does your own publications make money in general than the publication? 5 against 1. Really,
so let me just narrow this. Let's get the figures right. So I've got Eating Smoke, my first memoir. That's that one. Eating Smoke.
It's great cover.
40 Nights was the follow-up, what people would call a recovery memoir. I've got The Drift and The Trade is the follow-up in my fiction series, which is a beautiful career to embark on writing fiction. You learn so much, right? So that's 4 books. I've got my free How to Write a Memoir guide. I suggest everyone reads that, right? That was my 5th. The 6th book is what I'm writing now. I'm just finally doing the editing and the cover. I'm going to put some photos in this book, so I've got to learn a new skill now, right? That's going to be called State of Mind, the Marine slogan. It's about my running the length of the country, my ultramarathon a day for 36 days. So that'll be my 6th book. and I've got on the computer another 4 books that are all
in the
either
process.
an idea or I've written a few words on it.
Yeah.
Now, I thought when I started writing fiction, it would just take off because I was a published author and I had, you know, I've got a lot of people on social media. I had about over 100,000 at one point, but here's another lesson. On your social media, don't just go following everyone that follows you, which I thought was a good thing to do. I thought I was being kind of loyal and, hey, no, because most of those people following, they don't even know who you are. They just might see something and go, oh, I like him. And
jams up.
What happens is they ruin your algorithm, because when you put a tweet out or a Facebook, they just ignore it. So Facebook goes, oh, this post isn't interesting. We won't show that to the internet. And they hide, Facebook will hide it, and Twitter will hide your post. So you got 100,000 people and you're getting like 2 retweets, if that. A lot of the tweets don't even get any, right? I'm actually in the business, Danny, of having to like unfollow everybody again now because they're not helping me.
I get that.
So I was really surprised, Danny, that my fiction, it did all right. The first month I made £160 off my book, which was just like, wow. It might not sound a lot to people, but that's good in you know. Most self-published people won't make 160 quid in their lifetime. So to get it in your first month was okay. But then it just trickled down. Then other things come up in your life. So you can't just keep promoting that book. I spent a year writing the second one, the second one, The Drift. Possibly that's too long to be writing a book. You need to get that down. You need to get a book out every 6 months at least, right? This is all just stuff you learn. And so it's got to a situation where I now earn more of my own published books than I do from my traditional publisher. And that more is going up, not exponentially, but gradually, now that I've got the podcast.
Yeah.
You know, now that there's more people interested in me, in my story, and that I can inspire people because I'm on the podcast in front of them. It's more of a reason, you know. I give a lot of my work away for free. If you join my Patreon group, it's just £2 a month, $1.99 a month is the bottom level. You get all my memoirs, right? Why? Well, that £2, that's actually more than I'd earn if you got all my memoirs through my publisher, right? Not, you know, either of my publishing companies. The margins are so small. Certainly, if you paid my Patreon for 2 months, that's £4. That's a good return on the books. That's not why I do it, Denny. I do it because I genuinely appreciate people supporting me. And it's like, here's a freebie. You know, here's my work for free. I don't care if they want to give that Kindle file to their mate, and it's all exposure, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, I've been out of online for a long time, but I've been 8 years here in Costa. And I've not for 6 years. I've not had a bank card, so that's another reason why I don't go out and buy all these different things, because I don't have the access to it. I've been living in a sort of jungle environment for ages and ages, you know. But literally, the way that I see guys with podcasts, which is the most, I don't watch TV anymore, Chris. I don't, you know, like I'm busy working or writing or something like that. Or when we're brain dead, we'll just jump online and watch something which inspires us, you know. So we're not really a TV kind of person. So the podcast industry coming along, you know, like your podcast, for example, I might not be online for 6 weeks, but I'll spend the next 4 or 5 days catching up on everything I've missed, you know. And that's how I work it. I think, you know, like having Patreon or having people donate towards your work, well, that's a new industry. It's a fantastic industry that once I have a bank card, once I, you know, get going, I'll definitely be involved. I think you guys need this income so you can keep on doing this, because people don't realize takes a lot of your energy talking to people all day. It takes a lot of energy editing your own films, man, and that takes the most time of all things. Going like what we talk now, 2.5 hours already. So you're going to have to spend the next another 2.5 hours finding the bits so you can clip it here and there. That's 5 hours, and it goes on and on. And so the time that you spend to get this product that you get, which is always perfect, you should be rewarded for that, mate. You know, and it's the same as the authors and the same as the books and filmmakers, all of the arts. We need to be paid for the work that we do at some point. Otherwise, you can't be this author or this artist again, you know, and then we have to go back and be a brookie or a joiner, or for myself, boxing coach, which I love. But my point is, we need more money going into your industry, what you're doing right now, your podcast. People, for example, I would say what we've spoke about for the last 2.5 hours, 10 years ago would be worth $350. Just this conversation itself.
Yeah.
Right? Back in the day, that's what it was all about. When I launched Fighting Your Demons in 2009, I could have, well, I did. I sold lots of courses for $350, but I would spend 1 hour talking to someone like this 3 times in a month. Job done. That's what it was like. So what you're giving away for free is amazing. Very rich in content. You can really become a lot better of a person listening in to what you're doing. So I think it's awesome that you get the opportunity to do a monthly and payment to your service, and also that you have a platform also to tell people about your writing and the work you're doing and the charities that you're doing and the people that you know are doing other things as well. I congratulate you, mate, from the bottom of my heart. I love your work. I'd say like over the last sort of period of time, I wish I had more time to catch up before I got in this meeting with you. Exactly, I've probably done that 6 hours prior to, but it's been hectic for us at the moment. But I really love what you've talked about. You mentioned LinkedIn there. Really, I'm on LinkedIn, but I've never used it ever. You know, I've got Twitter. I've only really in the last few months started looking at Twitter because I've been off main online. I'll jump onto Twitter for news to see what's going on. Do you use Twitter much? Do you use Twitter much? Would you say that for you, selling books or selling product is better to be on LinkedIn?
I would say I work so hard and so long hours, Danny, at everything that my social media goes by the by. I just don't get, you know, I see some guys on there. They've always got like their story up, like every day that their story is up. I'm like, dude, how are you so organized? And, you know, I'm lucky if I sit down after my morning run to put like I've been running photo on Instagram, kind of an inspirational, with a little bit of inspirational writing. Like I can look at my watch, Denny, and that's taken me 40 freaking minutes. By the time I've copy and pasted that post into my Twitter and my Facebook, that's 40 minutes of my writing morning gone. Then the temptation is has anybody liked it? You know, that's the ego in us, isn't it? Has anyone liked it? Oh, and then of course all day long you're just you've really got to take a warrior approach to it. You've got to have your time when you do your media. You've got to have a strategy behind your media. What are you doing with it? If you're just with pictures of your, you know, I'm writing a book, here's my pina colada. Yeah, 1 or 2 of them a month is okay. But if that's all you do, what are you doing? You're not selling books by it. It's got to be a call to action. You know, it's got to be a follow me on Facebook, follow my YouTube, buy my book, sign up to my page. You know, I'm not saying this to be greedy. Everything has to work.
It's a job. It's a job, right? If it's going to make money, you have to put the time in. What I found, that's why I come off Facebook and all that 6 months ago. Just like it's such a distraction. I can't write. For example, at 1 minute you're Jesus talking to Muhammad, talking to Buddha, and they're having a real deep conversation about the world's fucking problems. And then you look up, you see a notification coming in, and someone's talking shit, calling someone this or calling someone that on a post that you thought was not going to get any of that in it. And it takes your mind out of that, which is the most important part of what I'm doing, and I can get caught in that. So what I would do is just take off all online, get up in the morning, maybe we're up at 6 o'clock or something like that. I spend 6 to 7:30 doing a catch up with world events, and then I'm offline. And I don't go back online again during the day until I've finished all the tasks that I had for writing.
Yeah.
But now that I've come to the sort of end of that, I now need to attach my time and effort and meet, like you say, maybe social media slot in the day where I'm there for an hour, pushing what it is my agenda would be, and then not spending an hour waiting to see who relaxes, who responds, come off the social media again, and then just leave it. Otherwise, like you say, I mean, when I first launched my very successful YouTube channel, I think there's 10,000 subscribers there. I've not done a lot for a long time, but it went quite well last, when I made it. And what it was all about was every video went up, I was sitting waiting to see if anyone would write, and then someone would write, and you'd go, what? What's wrong with you? Why would you say that? And then you end up chasing them down, finding out who they are, and then you find it's a fucking 14-year-old kid sitting in his mum's basement, just saying what he wants to say. And he's probably been doing that for the rest of his life. And it took me a long time, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, before I became thick-skinned to that. I didn't chase it down. If I saw something that was there that was just outrageously horrible, I just deleted it and blocked them. And it was just an easy process, but it was time-consuming. But most of all, it's heartbreaking because you are so proud of what you've done. I think for guys like us as well, we were Marines, we weren't taught to be, this is egotistic sitting here talking like this and doing this compared to what they thought. You have a book, you've got to sell it. Who do you think you are writing a book? This is ingrained in your head. We weren't taught to be standing out the front, being on camera and being a celebrity in any sense. We were taught to be humble, and my job is to look after you, Chris, and your job is to look after John, and John's job is to look after, and it goes round in a circle. Everyone's looking out for each other. No one's thinking they're better than everyone else. Everyone's quite equal in their way of thinking. We have a structure of seniority, through the sergeants all the way through to the RSMs, through the lieutenants all the way through to the colonels and all that. And it all fits into a nice place. And in an easy world, guys like us come out into civilian life and we have no structure. We don't know what to fucking do. We get so upset and we watch these things and we're getting so raging about the way people see things in life that you can feel my passion rising right now as I'm talking. Sometimes you have to turn it all off and just look after the business. And the business right now for me is I have spent a long time hoping, praying that I can one time soon become a career writer, so I can spend all my time writing, researching, talking to you, collaborating hopefully one day with you and other people, so we can get great books out coming in from our own opinions. Because your bio's my Albats, Fighting Your Demons, Attitude Revolution, is kind of morally bio as well, lots of memoirs, lots of experience. Novel writing is a whole new game, It's like, now I've just made up the whole story. I've sure used some of the life experiences of many people, but now I'm making it up. Now it's just pure imagination. What happens if no one likes this? What happens if everyone thinks I'm a fucking nutter? And then I've still got to write another couple of books because I've got all this stuff has been written for the last 8 years. You've got me if you like. It doesn't matter. I'm here. But I really want to sort of get myself published, not self-published. I don't want the drama of it. It was a headache, cost money. I don't have money anymore. I just want to get someone somewhere along the line who can buy into this project. And like you said, Chris, I'm going to have to be really aware of that contract, the written contract, and all that sort of stuff, and hopefully be able to maybe speak with you in private when this is happening to say, what do you think this would be?
Yeah, by all means do, and utilize all the methods I told you. Backdoor method is obviously,
first priority.
Yeah, just get out there and see who you can find and who can open doors for you. And we're lucky we're part of that brotherhood, so we've got an extra kind of string to our bow. But yeah, let's wrap up there. Otherwise, no one's going to watch a 3-hour video about publishing. Not that I'm too bothered, but it would be nice to help a few people with this.
There'll be a few people, mate, and I think certainly there's a lot of people out there. Certainly, guys from our industry, guys from the military, guys who have been out in the Iraq or Afghanistan for all these years. They've got all these thoughts in their mind. My call, if there's anyone watching right now who are into, who have been a victim of satanic ritual abuse, or if they've been a victim of child abuse in any sense, is you guys have the stories which will save the world. You guys need to find the courage to be able to talk to guys like me or Chris and tell your story, because we do want to hear, we don't want to judge you. We know there's a big problem, and you guys really have the answer to the healing of this. Don't think anything other than you're amazing, you survived, you're there, you're a warrior, And guys like me and Chris, we're Marines, we are warriors, we're commandos, and I would like to help you more and more as I progress through my life, now that I'm fully aware of it, you know? Because people need to write, Chris, and what you've just done for us today is tell us the truth, the pitfalls, the truth, what you've got to face. It might not be good enough writing, it might not be good enough grammar, it might not be, you know, you might have to spend a bit of money like you did 1,000, like I did before my first book. It does cost a lot of money, but the first one you get, it's definitely worth someone having a proofread and saying, right, okay, for this business I've been in writing, this is what you need to improve on, because that can be disheartening, but you need to do it.
Exactly. On that note, Denny, I wish you all the best.
Thank you, brother.
Stay on the line.
Yeah.
To everybody at home, I hope you got something out of this, especially all you budding authors out there, or even published authors who are looking at, you know, how to take it to the next step. If you could like and subscribe. All my books are on Amazon. Just go to Chris Thrall. I'll put links for Denny below the video. And that's it. Right on, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Chris. That was brilliant.
You're welcome, mate. You're welcome. Hello, friend. I hope this finds you well. My name's Chris Thrall. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando, and I fought my way back from chronic trauma and addiction to live, work and travel in 80 countries across all 7 continents, achieving all of my dreams and goals along the way. Now I pass my simple system on to other people, but I can only help you if you like and subscribe. So please do so, because you get one life, and if you live it right, one is enough.